How about it, y'all? You got Hawg. I'm your Southern Diablo 4 resource. Thanks for stopping by. Listen here, before I get into this, I got the air conditioner running, so if you hear some background noise, sorry about that. It's hotter than the handle on the gate of hell down here in South Georgia, so I'm not sweating like a whore in church. Got to have it running. Apologize. Anyway, let's talk about how to make sure you're doing the maximum amount of damage and how to pick which stats you want to roll in Diablo 4. The easy way is to look at our bucket list here. So if you're not familiar with the bucket list, I'm going to pin a video where I kind of went over it. Goblin Inc. did the first video on it, and everybody in the community has done a video on it. Since then, it was put out about a month ago. It's a good refresher on how to make sure you're chaining together different things in different buckets to make sure you're dealing maximum amount of damage. So it directly correlates with your offensive stats. So if you click on materials and stats right here, it'll pull up this list and you just come down offensive. Directly lines up with your bonus. Okay, so you've got critical strike, damage verse, all damage, damage with, damage while. So if you make sure that you've got all of your buckets covered, oh, and the one you can't see in the bottom is vulnerable. We got vulnerable right here. So if you've got all of your buckets covered, then you'll know what to start speccing into. So, okay, my buckets are covered. First step's taken care of. No problems there. Now you're going to start looking at what's lacking on this list. Now, obviously, everything I have now is pretty souped up. Let's take this one off here. So we're looking around. Let's say you have just picked up a ring. It's got a bunch of defense rolls, or there's some rolls that are helping everything else, but there's a defense roll that you want to get rid of, and you're trying to pick which roll to take, which roll you want to look for. Well, you come cruising down here and you see all this other stuff. Okay. These are all adding, so everything in the same bucket adds with, so that's fine. That's almost 3, 4, 5, so almost 60%. That's cool. Damage while. This one can use some love. 14%, but again, I'm not super concerned about this one. The bucket's there. Damage verse. I'm very well taken care of in this area here. Actually 4 of them here. Very well taken care of. All damage, pretty good. Vulnerable damage. That could probably be better, right? So that's the one I'm going to want to look at. So this is a pretty good ring roll here. Critical strike chance. I prefer that to be damage, but it's still pretty good. It's almost perfect roll. Crowd control, we'd roll that one in. It's another bucket. Lucky hit chance, highly recommend taking that. I can't stress that enough. And vulnerable damage. So we've got 3 buckets covered. So if we look at what we have here, the bucket that we needed was vulnerable damage. We're going to put the ring back on, shoots it up 49.4%. And it also brings our damage versus crowd controlled up because we have an attribute for that as well. So 84%. It will also help you out determining what gems you need to put in your weapon. Okay? So if you look and see that you're lacking on certain areas, one of them is damage versus crowd control. Obviously, I'm set in that area, so I don't need to put any gems in. But if you were lacking right there and your build relied on crowd control, which just about every build does, then you can put your blue in there, your sapphires, and get increased damage versus crowd control. Right now, I'm running increased critical strike damage to vulnerable enemies because my crit strike chance is pretty high, and my crit strike damage is also pretty high. That could be higher, but that's what it is right now. Then I've got some lucky hit stuff that when actually lucky hit procs, or I poison some stuff, that doubles. I've actually got it built in the build right now to where when I poison an enemy, they take 50% more critical strike damage. So little things like that are not going to be shown, but it gives you a base idea of how to kind of piece together stats on your gear. Now, one thing I'll recommend, don't neglect defensive stuff, even though it doesn't boost your willpower, your attack power, or whatever. Okay, don't abandon that. It was very difficult for me to stay alive with 7,500 attack power and no armor, so keep that in mind. Your life right here, your life number is directly correspondent to how much life you have in the life pool. So sometimes that vitality number used to be what it was called. It didn't directly represent your HP, and now it directly represents your HP. And little things like strength can help armor. Make sure you hover over all this if you don't know. Intelligence is all resistance, resource. Willpower is your main damage dealer for Druid at least. And dexterity is your critical strike chance. So you can passively buff all that stuff with different items. Stuff with all stats on it is really valuable because it'll just increase everything across the board instead of just focusing on one thing. And I really like that kind of stuff. Again, lucky hit chance, and I don't know, just make sure that you're chaining your buckets up. That's the best advice that I can give you. Don't neglect your bucket list. Make sure that it's working. Make sure that it's chaining together. If you're looking at this thing and you say, man, you know, like damage with werebear, that's pretty low. I could fix that. You know, I could put something else on that would boost that up, or damage with werebear, you know, or change it out completely to something that would give you more damage. You understand? So, yeah, it's just, you got to play with it. I'm trying to help you out so you don't have to roll too much stuff. Also, remember that your main damage dealing aspects, so things like, for the Druid, pulverized, shockwave, things like your core skills, multipliers, stuff like that, make sure those are on 2 hands. Or amulets, whichever one you can get them on, because you want maximum amount of multiplier that you can get, so it just chains up together. And then you'll actually start seeing you can attack with, let's say, just your core skill, and it will only do X amount of damage, a small number. But then if you start chaining together things, buckets, so for like Druid, if I put my barrier up and I put a slow crowd control on them, and then I poison them, and then they're vulnerable, yeah, you see what I'm saying? Then it multiplies all those together instead of just one bucket worth of an attack. So you can really notice that when you're on cooldown or you're out of resource or whatever, and you're relying on one specific skill to attack and you can't do your chains. But that's how you do massive amounts of damage with your chains. As far as not relying on one aspect and that's dealing all the damage, you know, kind of like Grizzly Roar with Pulverize. It's kind of just one thing. They're relying on one shot. This is how you stack your buckets up to do different damage with different things. So it might be kind of elementary. I apologize if it is, but you got to remember there's a lot of new players, a lot of people that don't understand how this stuff works together. So Hawg's Elementary School of Diablo 4. How about that? So don't flame me too hard in the comments if you've already seen it. I appreciate you for watching. Make sure you hit like and subscribe. If you need a community to run with, y'all, the House of Hawg, we ain't mild, we're wild. Links in the description below. That is a really good community. It's really big now. We've got build guides. We've got different creators on there that are sharing their stuff. We've got a full community. A way to get into, well, I guess we're going to have to start another clan now because we've got a full clan. But really the main thing is if you're looking for a group, there's a really good group of guys over there, very knowledgeable, all player skills, levels, everything available to you on our Discord. So highly recommend you join. Don't be shy. We won't bite. It's a lot of fun. You can come sit in on the voice conversations and everything. We're usually always there, and it's welcome for everybody. So please feel free to come in. Also, big thank you to our sponsor, MMOEXP.com. Make sure to go visit them if you need Diablo 4 needs, and appreciate y'all. See you next time.